If you are a busy homeschool parent, want to be a homeschool parent, are overwhelmed by the idea of how to be a successful homeschool parent, today's presentation is very much for you. It's all about sustainable homeschooling for busy parents. So whether you're just getting started or trying to figure out how to manage a busy household, or a parent who is working and also wants to homeschool your children, again, this presentation is for you. We're going to talk about several concepts when all put together will make your homeschool sustainable. It's all about systems. If you have the right things in place, then your homeschool will support you. And if you feel like I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated every day, there's stress going in and going out of our homeschooling experience, then that doesn't mean that homeschooling is not right for you. It just means that something is wrong in your approach. If you feel yourself wearing down or burning out, it has nothing to do with your ability as a parent, and it has everything to do with putting the right systems in place to support your ability to homeschool successfully. So this is a really good presentation that a lot of people were asking about getting access to. So we're not gatekeeping here. We're making it available to everyone. I would love for you to follow, subscribe, click all the buttons so that people know that this video is working, it's supporting them, it's supporting you. And if you need any further support, check the links below in the description. You have access to my free community. You have access to the Homeschool Mastery Group, which is my premium community where we support families with coaching and a four-phase framework for how to do this whole thing successfully. But today is all about making it work for you. There is also a free guide and a note sheet that you can use where there's a bunch of templates to make each of these concepts make sense for when you apply it to your own reality. So make sure to check the description below to get all the information, and let's get into the presentation.
And we'll jump right in. So again, just by way of a reminder and introductions, this is Streamlined Homeschooling for Busy Parents. Busy parents, I think, is like a common theme when it comes to people trying to figure out how to do this, especially when maybe you're at the place where for the first time you're thinking about transitioning into homeschooling and it already feels like you're trying to keep your life in order, and that's hard enough as it is. And then you take on more responsibility and you're always like, how are we going to do this? So homeschooling is doable, I really believe, for almost any situation. There are caveats where there are situations where people just for that given season can't make it work. I personally believe even if this is something that you want and you don't believe you can do it now, anyone can move in this direction. And so even if that's where someone falls in this presentation, take some of the things and put them in order in your life, and it will move you towards homeschooling even if you're not all the way there. So again, with sustainability in mind, this is kind of one of those hot topics. I know Kathy had said that this was a top contender between this and burnout, and we chose this topic because it's kind of going to touch on both. If you don't have sustainability practices set up for yourself in mind, burnout is one of those inevitable things that comes at the tail end of not doing it in a way that works for you and for your family. And so here we go. By way of reminder, my name is Dr. Blake Willard. I have a doctorate in educational ministry. I moved from being a full-time educator and then school principal for 13 plus years in the field across wilderness education and classical education and traditional schools, ultimately believing that homeschooling is the best form of education, with a caveat, when done well, for families. And so my goal is to help as many families figure out how to do it well, because then you give the best form of education to your children. So I believe everyone can do it, and this is one of those things, one of those obstacles that we want to overcome together. Who you might be as a parent who's here today is a working parent considering homeschooling. You might be a current homeschooler who's feeling overwhelmed. That certainly is possible. Or one of the most common ones, you may be a parent with more than one child. And if that's the case, figuring out how to keep all of them learning and moving forward at the same time is a common concern. Or just anyone who's seeking sustainable solutions. Again, there's things here, you may be rocking it, but there are things that you can add so you can do even better. And no matter what, it doesn't matter if you feel like you guys are hitting a home run every time. Well, let's score more points. So I want to help as many of you as possible feel like you can nail this process, and I really believe that you can. And so that's the goal of talking about sustainability as a busy parent. So here's the dilemma. Possibly, I don't know where each of you are in your journey, but at some point, we all had the preconceived notion that school had to be certain things. And so even when we start homeschooling, we usually believe it has to be certain things. And those things include a normal length school day, right? 6, 7, 8 hours even. Separate curriculum for each child. maybe that you have to quit your job in order to do it because it's a full-time job now. And possibly that, perfect lesson plans and teaching skills, like these are all things that are required in order to be able to do this. None of that's true, right? Surprise, none of that's true. Here's the reality. You have limited time. You have work responsibilities, whether you're getting paid for them or not. It's just a guarantee as running a household. You have probably multiple children, and they more than likely have different needs. And if you're not doing this well, then you are inevitably heading towards burnout. So these are the problems that we have to address as home educators in order to get to a place where we could homeschool successfully, sustainably, right? So what if I told you, again, go on this journey with me. Let's just pretend that homeschooling can be done 3 times more effectively. Most homeschool families are doing 3 times more work than is necessary. And the problem is when you do too much, you actually become less effective. Right? There was a big study at one point looking at a 55-hour work week versus a 35-hour work week. And what they saw is once you cross over 35 hours, there's a rate of diminishing return that actually goes backwards. So people who work too much, it's actually a terrible thing, right? People who work too much end up producing less. So you might get 20 more hours of work on the clock, but 5 hours less of productivity. And so it's the same thing for homeschoolers. If you're doing more, it doesn't mean that you're getting better results. In fact, I would argue more than likely, it's the opposite. You're experiencing the fatigue that, when not addressed, leads to a reduction in quality. Right? So here's what we're going to get by the end of today's session. You'll get a complete framework for 2 to 3 hour homeschool days. You'll get systems that work for you even if you are working, right? How to balance and maintain that load. You'll get methods for teaching multiple children simultaneously, and then strategies to prevent burnout, hopefully, God willing, before it starts, and then tools to create independent learners. All of these things that we talk about today, we're going to talk about as individual components or ideas. All of them fit together, right? So there is a way to start to take these and mesh it and synthesize it into a system that is just the perfect sustainable model for you. But if you walk away today and you only do one thing, you will still be homeschooling more sustainably than if you didn't show up. So it doesn't matter if you take away all 5, 10, 15, things that we might talk about. If you take away one thing, you are in a better place. And my goal always for families is to just move the ball forward down the line. And you've got some things that you can work on, some follow-up items that will hopefully keep you accountable. So today, let's talk about mission-driven efficiency. I am a huge advocate of the idea that every family has a personal mission, whether stated or unstated, and has values that are unique to their family. And when you are real clear on your identity as a family, who you are and where you want to move your children, like morally, ethically, in their character and their development, it does clarify things that ends up getting a lot of needless stuff out of the way. So I'm big on that. And one of the ways that we can kind of help our homeschool program is the 80-20 principle. 20% of activities will create 80% of the learning, right? So if we learn to put the most effort and energy into what is most effective, we're going to create the best results. So focus on what matters. Eliminate educational busy work. Schools are full of busy work, right? So we can just go ahead and chop as much of that out as possible and try to figure out what is most effective while using the fact that homeschooling is adaptable and flexible to pivot and learn and adjust to the needs of our children and our family. Right? Traditional school reality, you got 6+ hours in a school day of presence, but in general, about 90 minutes of actual learning. If you think about the transitions and the distractions and the fighting and the antisocial behaviors that a lot of kids confront, you're not getting 6 hours of quality learning. You have presence, right? Your children are locked in place somewhere, but they're not being productive, right? So that means if you're only getting 90 at best quality minutes of learning at school, then how do we recreate 90 quality minutes at home with systems that build and support that so that we have an overall far more effective model? Here's the homeschool advantage. 2 to 3 hours of effective work equals better results, right? And better results are just one of the many things that homeschooling offers, and I think that all of us want. Of course, we want better results. Maybe you also don't want negative influences or bullying or a teacher who's just giving you a hard time, but also better results, right? So it's both and, right? No wasted time on crowd control, and then you get to personalize it to your children's needs. Maybe you have multiple children, but I guarantee you, more than likely, you don't have 30 in your home class, right? So if that's the case, you guys already have a leg up on the traditional teacher and the challenges that they have to face that you don't need to worry about. So here's your decision-making filter. I already alluded to it. Before choosing your curriculum or your methods, make sure you're clear on these three things: your mission, your values, and your goals, right? So what is your ultimate goal for your children's education, right? There's a proverb that says, where there is no vision, the people will perish. If you have no clarity of your direction, then you're not going anywhere good, right? Or maybe if you don't know where you're going, then you're sure to get there, right? because you don't know where you're going, so you're going nowhere. And then values: what principles guide your family? Are you a family that values honesty, that values hard work, that values follow through? Right? These are the kinds of things that you can build into the dynamics of your learning environment. And then your goals: what specific outcomes do you want to achieve? Make sure you set those goals and you work backwards, right? Know what you're aiming for so that you can actually see that you're moving closer towards the goal, right? Everything else is going to flow from that foundation. So if you have nothing else, maybe today it would be great to sit down and identify those three things. All right, so now we're going to get into a number of strategies, each of which, like I said, we're going to compartmentalize it. We're going to talk about them as individuals, but they all fit together as a whole. So the first one, maybe there's no particular order, but one of the most common pain points for a lot of parents is that they have more than one child, and they're trying to figure out how to fit everybody's education into a single day, right? And what a lot of homeschooling families that don't have the sustainability plan that we're discussing today in mind end up doing is they end up adding more and more and more and more. Okay, I have a 5th grader and a 7th grader and a kindergartner, and we're all doing different things. If you think you have 5 subjects for each child, let's just say, and you are offering them a subject at a different level, that's 15 subjects you now have an obligation to figure out how to teach them every day. That doesn't sound sustainable for anyone, okay? It's too much. And so we have to figure out ways to bring it together and bring it down so that everybody's growing and learning without chopping our own heads off into stress from trying to do too much. We'll just leave it at that, right? So here's what I'm offering. The multi-level teaching method is offering the same content with scaled expectations. Okay, you don't have to have a whole new subject for every child. There are a number of subjects that work very well teaching together, right? Same content, different expectations. Fundamentally, that's what we're looking at. So here's the traditional approach. Most families separate curriculum for each child. They do individual teaching time for each subject, multiple resources, multiple materials. Again, you can see it's costing you time, it's costing you money, and ultimately it's costing you your emotional well-being. So the result of that is fatigue, exhaustion. It wears you out. It's expensive. There's just so much that if you multiply it times 5, 10, 15 years over the course of your children's education, it's like, how am I going to do this? And if you don't have joy in your homeschool, something is wrong. Something's wrong, right? As an educator, as a teacher in a classroom, I want to enjoy my classroom. I want to enjoy the learning time. And if I'm not, something is wrong, right? So if you feel like these things all the time, exhausted, fragmented, expensive resources, unsustainable, something is wrong, right? Something's got to give. So here's the multi-level solution. It's one subject with 3 levels of expectations. And these 3 levels are generalized because your children are going to fall somewhere on a spectrum, but it's creating different standards based off the ability of your children. So if I was to use the example of history as a subject, I could read the same history book, the same context, the same content to all of my children. And you already know that your kindergartner is going to get different things from it than your, let's say, high schooler. It's inevitable, right? But they're going to get something from it, right? So you might have history, Roman Empire, for instance, as a subject. And for your older children, you have advanced expectations. Maybe they're going to have a research paper, or they're going to do an essay. They're going to help in the teaching of younger children. There's going to be some independent analysis and critical thinking that you're going to want them to do. For the younger, maybe the middle-aged child, there's going to be some paragraphs, some summaries, guided discussions where you want to see how deeply you can take them into this subject. Note-taking, like learning the practice of taking notes and following along as someone is reading or presenting information. And then some structured activities. And then the little ones, your kindergartners, 1st, 2nd graders, listen and narrate, right? Listen to the story, tell me what you heard. If they can do that, they're doing a good job. Draw, color while you listen, and then maybe have a coloring or a drawing activity that goes along with the activity itself. ask simple questions, have a dialogue with them. And what you're trying to do is just extract what you can have. And some people will argue, it's like, well, they're not going to get everything that they could out of this. That's true. And like every subject that you will ever learn about for the rest of your life, there's an infinite depth for any subject, right? So you are allowed in 10 years to circle back with your current kindergartners and teach Roman history again, right? It's okay to cycle in your teaching and have one layer of depth now and a greater layer of depth later, right? Which means it's so important with the subjects that we actually choose, because you may only study a few things multiple times, but you teach your children depth rather than breadth, because the school system generally offers breadth, which is why none of us remember what we learned in third grade. We learned some skills, but you can't tell me too much else, okay? So real example, again, I've been already alluding to it. Ancient Rome, same content. Maybe you don't even do the teaching, but you have different expectations. You let your children watch a documentary. There's plenty of them out there, right? And then your older child, 14-year-old, they're doing a research project. They're writing an argumentative essay. They're presenting their findings, like a presentation with public speaking to the family. The middle child, they take notes on key Roman leaders. They write paragraph summaries of the main events, and they create a timeline. Timelines are great, regardless of age. I love timelines. And then your youngest, we're calling her Emma in this context. She draws a picture. She tells back an interesting fact that she heard. She asks questions while you're listening, while you're watching. And here's the cool thing. What you have here is not one teacher for 3 different children. You have 4 different teachers, because your oldest child can help teach your younger 2. And your middle child can help teach the youngest. And what's actually cool is the child, simply by asking questions, will help remind the older 2 children of what they're learning. So yes, you as the educator are teaching or presenting something, but everyone shares a responsibility to learn together. This is true multi-level teaching, where there's participation in teaching and learning that everybody is doing. And again, you only need one book or one subject for everyone, which means you're not only saving money, saving time, but you just get to be aware of what everyone's learning, and there's a circle of accountability that everybody is enfolded into. If you're juggling 3 different histories at the same time, things are going to fall out of your brain. It's just inevitable. So you have to allow yourself to be content to do something that works for you, knowing that your children will learn in the process and it will work for them too. So for parents, again, 75% less preparation time sounds pretty nice, right? One curriculum that serves all your children. It's a family environment. Think about when you sit around the table and you eat a meal. What do? Probably talk about something, right? You have some corrections, you have some stories. This is like that, right? And if you know how to guide a family meal, then you can guide a family discussion on any other subject as well. The same skill sets are included. And then for children, they get to learn together. The older children get to reinforce the learning by teaching themselves to the younger children. Younger children are exposed to advanced concepts that you can touch back on in a year, in 5 years, and 10 years. And then there's collaborative family discussions. The learning is reinforced across all ages and stages. So subjects that this works particularly well from history, science, literature, Bible study, current events, poli-sci, home economics, right? If you're not cooking with your kids, that's a free pass, right? They should be laboring with you. And there's so much you can learn just in the dynamics of the home. There's so many subjects that you can fit into this. Here's just some examples that you can use. Strategy 2, okay? So that was 1, is multi-level teaching. Number 2 is a sustainable schedule system. We got to go from school hours as a concept to learning rhythms, right? It's not hard times. It's a pulse that we keep track of that keeps us on beat with the needs of our home. And it's a mindset shift. The old thinking was we need to do this long school day, right? We're not really doing school if we're not doing it for the length of school. We're looking for outcomes as home educators. And if you can get the same outcomes or better in 2 hours instead of 8, that's a slam dunk, right? That's kudos to you. And you get to earn the rest of your day back to do other things, right? Each subject needs its own time slot. This is the old thinking. And then I have to teach everything directly. None of those are true, right? So here's the new thinking. Learning is happening all the time. Rhythms are more important than rigid schedules, right? Just something where we know what's coming, just like a beat in music. You know when that downbeat is going to hit. And then independence is the goal, not dependence. In traditional schooling, students are dependent on the teacher in most cases, right? The teacher is the arbiter and the presenter of information. And that means if the teacher's not teaching, then the kids aren't learning. right? So a different mindset and a pattern shift is allowing there to be systems in place that support independence, because independence is the goal, unless you want to live with your children forever, right? And they're always asking you, mom, mom, mom. So if that's not the goal, then we have to have sustainability patterns where independence becomes a priority over dependence. All right, so 3 pillars of sustainable scheduling. Pillar 1 is a morning launch. These are general recommendations, but these are the 3 I would recommend for all of you. All right, a morning launch routine, things that your children can do independently to get the day started successfully. This includes like hygiene, wake up, make your bed, like whatever expectations you put on your children when they get up in the morning, from, get up, get dressed, make your bed, brush your teeth, whatever personal care you need to do. Maybe for the boys, put on some deodorant, make a meal, put your dishes away. And then there might even be some academic activities. There could be some journaling or some note taking or some copy work or things you have in place that, again, are a part of their independent launch. And then this shifts into pillar 2, which is your focus blocks, where parents are actually leading the instruction, what we think of when we think of traditional education, in concentrated bursts. And then the third is independent learning time. So notice you're actually creating an independent learning sandwich here. You have a morning launch routine, focus blocks where you are leading the instruction, and then independent learning time. And it's all going to kind of pivot on that focus time that you're putting in the middle there. So here's an example. That morning launch might be 30 to 45 minutes from wake up to whenever we're doing focused learning time. These are examples of things that you could have. But again, I already walked through it. Wake up, make your bed, tidy things up, make breakfast, some quiet learning or some activity. Maybe you want your children to spend time in a book or in meditation or in prayer, whatever. Like, fit it in there. And then review daily expectations before we transition now into the second pillar. So again, the goal is children to start productively without parent supervision. Again, sustainability is the aim of this presentation, right? So we need to set our children up to start doing things on their own so that we can do other things that we also need to do, right? There's nothing wrong with you being able to intervene and parent every once in a while. But part of parenting is also like kicking your kids out to let them do the thing. And sometimes they'll fail and you parent, right? And sometimes they'll do great and you parent. But you don't have to always be directly interacting and overseeing and directing everything that they do. So the second block is when you really get to take lead. It's your focus blocks. This your second pillar. 20 to 25-minute sections on particular subjects that require direct instruction. So when you think about mathematics or language arts for different children, this may require some hand-holding and some direct instruction, and this is the time to put it in. And if you have 3 different children with 3 different levels of math, then what I would do in this 20 to 25-minute period is provide the necessary instruction to present the concept that's being reviewed and push the actual work of doing and practicing the skill for the independent time that's going to come immediately after. So we will get into that, but it's being very intentional with a short, very concentrated burst so that you can be as effective as possible, provide whatever instructions necessary so that your children have clarity, and then ultimately are setting them up for the next stage, which is to be able to launch and do the things independently on their own. So again, short, concentrated instruction, multi-level teaching whenever possible. And then this is also when you're obviously going to introduce new concepts. Specifically, math is the easiest example, right? Usually every day in a math lesson, there's some new concept, right? So make sure they get the concept and then allow them to do some practice work and then push what you might consider the homework section for a little bit later during the independent time. So here's some samples. 9 to 9:25, we have math at all levels. All levels meaning that everyone has a different level that they're learning. 9:35 to 55, we've got history and science, the multi-level teaching like we discussed earlier. You can do everything together. One subject, different expectations. And then 10 to 10:25, language arts, scaled expectations, meaning we still might use some of the same content, but the expectations are going to look very different depending on if your youngest child is just focusing on basic grammar or vocabulary. Your oldest child might be able to do some more complex writing, but we're adjusting depending on the ability of each of our children and your ability to push them with different levels of expectations. The key here, quality over quantity. Some of us might feel like, is this enough? Yes, it's enough because you can go far deeper and in depth, your children will have more of these connections that lead to breakthroughs over time. And then the third pillar is independent learning time. There's so much that children do at school that theoretically could be done independently if someone would just provide them the resources and the direction to allow them to do it. Children are inherently curious. People are curious. If we weren't, we wouldn't be top of the food chain. Okay. Liz, I'm gonna thank you for the question. I'm gonna jump to questions at the end. We will have Q&A time, so we will get into that. Just so you know. So independent learning time. Again, there's so much that your children can do together. We just want to allow them to be very clear on what success looks like. So what children do, complete pre-assigned work. This is the independent work. So what I would recommend is when you start your day, you list out what they're getting into for each child. So they start their day with expectations, and then that translates as it comes time for independent work. They know the things that they need to knock out. They know what's coming. Your role as a parent is to be available for questions. All right, we're going to talk about setting a period of time that's available, kind of like your help block. And during this independent time, you think about a professor in a university. They have office hours. It's a time when anyone can come knock on their door, theoretically, and ask a question about an assignment, about an essay, get some help. And this is what you're doing. You are making yourself available, and you're giving your children the opportunity and teaching them the ability to seek help when they need it at an appropriate time. And what it does is it teaches independence rather than dependence. Right? You want your children to try to solve their own problems before they come to someone else for every problem. Now, I'm not saying we want to make ourselves obsolete right away, but eventually you want to be incredibly needful, but also not needed at all. You're needful because of what you offer your children through the relationship and the strength of that relationship that you've built over time. But you know that if you're not there, they're going to be okay. That's the independence that we're aiming for in home education. So the goal is that children will become self-directed learners. Okay, so you have to give them periods of independent learning so that they can practice the skill of becoming an independent learner and a self-directed learner. And if they never have it, like anything, if I decide I want to become a classical pianist and I never sit in front of a piano, but I hear a lot about it, I'm never going to be any good. You just have to put the work in and start trying it, right? Get your hands on the keys. It's the same thing here. You need to give your children the experience of independence and getting work done on their own without being able to just come and blabber whenever they want, because it's learning to constrain themselves, to seek their own answers, and then when necessary, to go to the source for help when they need it. So here's an example of a possible daily rhythm that you can go through. We've got our morning launch here in the morning. This is independent time, note. And then we've got our 3 focus blocks. So notice this is only about an hour and a half, right? So the core of the hardest subjects that require the most instruction, it's an hour and a half. And then we transition immediately into independent learning time. Maybe this is an hour and a half. Part of that might be, mom's available for help when needed, but you can be doing your own work alongside your children if that's something that needs to happen while they're getting their work done. And then you're just there to field questions as necessary. This way, again, you're sandwiching dependence, which is the parent-led part, with independence. You got your help time here. So maybe they finished their work. Maybe they had some questions. They did independent learning for an hour and a half. They still had things that they need help on. That's when they come to you. And then beyond that, we're going to talk about your needs and wants list here in a moment. But anywhere in here, like this is a rough schedule because you will need to adjust it to make it work for you. But I would say anywhere in here, fit in physical activity. Go take a lap around the house. For your boys, go do some jumping jacks or some push-ups. Like give yourself the opportunity anytime that you need it for physical activity. But this is the general pattern that we're talking about, okay? Again, there's so much to the day besides academics. Part of becoming a fully developed person is personal responsibility, right? So chores, projects, and then of course, wants. What do your kids want to learn? What do they want to do? What are activities that bring them joy? That's all a part of the process. And then it doesn't have to be at this time, but maybe during dinner is a great time for family reflection to discuss, kind of like a meeting. Like let's say you hosted a presentation and you bring your team together. Now we're discussing what went well and what didn't and what we can improve. Well, family reflection time, wherever this fits in your day, is so important for helping build this collaborative idea of always identifying areas where we can improve and actually improving, right? And this will become your game plan for the next morning because you'll have something that you take away that immediately transitions into your morning launch the next day. All right, here's your third strategy. I already have mentioned it. It's the needs versus wants framework. It sounds, and it is really so simple, But if you have children who are not easily motivated or struggle with self-motivation to get their work done, having the right carrot and the right stick can be very important. And as an adult, we have things that we need to do. I need to pay my bills. I have something in front of me right here, right? I've got a light bill and an electricity bill. Uh, and if I don't pay it, right, what's going to happen? Lights are going off. We, we have to learn to take care of our needs. And then your wants are great. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do certain things, but we want to teach our children to prioritize what is most important first and earn your wants, right? Earn your wants. Give yourself the ability to get into the stuff that you desire to do by just knocking out the stuff that needs to be done, right? And this is why people who keep lists, having a checklist and getting your top 3 things knocked out first thing and giving yourself the freedom with the headspace to enjoy your day can be so helpful. For adults, well, let me tell you, it's helpful for kids too. So here's the priority principle. Core rule, needs before wants always, right? This is, again, it's so easy to compromise. You want to say yes to your children because you love them. But sometimes the most loving thing that we can do is say no and create a boundary that we expect them to stay within. And if your child hasn't brushed their teeth yet, then maybe it's not the time to play Minecraft or whatever the next thing is that they want to do, right? We have to put our needs as a priority because this is how your children learn self-care and so many other important skills like responsibility, natural motivation. It's going to help eliminate daily battles. If you just make this a mantra that you repeat, look, it's needs before wants, always, right? Make your kids hear it in their own head when don't even finish your sentence because you say it so often that they stop asking. Because that's ultimately what we want. We want them to focus on what is actually required so that they can get to the things that they desire. It's going to build character and it is going to develop, excuse me, self-discipline. So the result, your children learn to prioritize their responsibilities, which is part of being a well-formed person before pursuing their desires. And their desires become their motivators, which is so huge. So let's talk about building your needs list. I have 3 different categories here that you could put on this list. Putting everything out there that your children need to do, fundamentally. This includes academic needs. Maybe it's daily reading or math or writing or journaling, subject-specific assignments. But what about life skills, personal care, hygiene, room maintenance, right? If your room is an absolute bomb, you may have gotten all your schoolwork done, but I don't want to pick up all your dirty clothes and underwear and whatever strewed throughout your room. I would like you to do it because you made the mess, right? So especially as your children get older, setting those boundaries that it's academics, yes, but it's also personal hygiene and life skills. And then also possibly some character development, morning routine completion, respectful communication. There's a big difference between saying yes and saying yes, or whatever that version is for your kids, right? We want them to learn to communicate with us and with each other like loving, mature, caring adults who are a part of contributing members of our family. And this means that you may need them to back up and focus on a character thing before they get to their wants too. So just have your list, have the things that you're always saying written down so you don't have to always say them, and make it real crystal clear for each of your children. And some of these things will look different, obviously, for each child as their maturity requires. And then your wants list, what is that? It is not whatever your child wants to do whenever they want to do it. It is what they want to do that is approved by you. So you are the final filter on that wants list. So allow them to do things that they love, that you love for them. Okay? Not everything that your children want to do is worth doing. And you know that even though they don't. And so obviously we have to be that boundary sometimes. Creative play, right? I really recommend have an area with arts and crafts and stuff that when they get to that want time, they can just go do it. They can pull it out. They can have fun. They can play. They can make a mess, clean it up. If they're doing an extracurricular or learning an instrument, this is such a great time to build in practice and again, advancing themselves in the areas of life that they hope to be good at one day. And then this doesn't mean necessarily unlimited screen time, that they can just go isolate themselves and hide in their room and be mopey. And it doesn't mean passive entertainment, right? Doom scrolling, where we just do this thing. It's activities that create more work for you as the parent. those ones are the worst, right? So there's nothing wrong with helping our kids, but we want them to have things that they desire that are good for them and also support where we're going as a family. So the key is that you control the wants list, choose activities that align with your values. If they want to do it and it's not good for them, just it's not an option. Don't put it on the list. Don't choose to fight that battle. It's not going to be worth it, right? And then so some implementation strategies. Daily check-in system, morning, midday, and evening. Again, you don't always have to be actively teaching your kids, but it is super important, just like a caring boss who is looking after their employees, to just circle back on the issues that you've spoken about and make sure things are going well. Hey, you guys need anything? Right? When I was a principal, I would just pop in classrooms and just say hi to teachers, just to let them know I care and I'm seeing them and I see what's going on. Sometimes I would notice students were acting out and I would pull those issues and help them solve problems because I want them to know I'm available. And then if they need the help, I'm there for them. You don't have to, constantly be interrogating your children with what problems they need to solve, but have a check-in, have a system, have a time where you can make sure that things are moving in a good direction. And accountability tools, simple checklists for younger children, maybe progress tracking for older ones, natural consequences. I live by natural consequences. If you don't clean your room and you knew you were supposed to clean your room, that's fine. You just have to do it now when the rest of us are doing this other thing that you'd rather be doing, right? There's lessons to be learned here. And the goal is self-motivated children who understand priorities fundamentally. And if they can learn that skill early, then they'll be ahead of literally all of their peers. So it will be good for them. It will be good for you. So strategy 4, building independent learners from dependence to self-direction, right? We've alluded to it. We've talked about it. Again, all of these concepts tie together. The ultimate goal is to create learners who thrive with minimal supervision. And we can do this. Here's why independence matters. If you're busy, you can't do everything for your children, right? So you're going to need them to learn the skill of doing things independently. It's good for your children because it builds confidence, responsibility, and life skills. One day, God willing, they won't live with you. And that means that they're going to need to stand on their own 2 feet. And then it's good for the family because it creates a culture in your family that is actually sustainable. It becomes an enjoyable homeschool environment, right? Homeschools thrive when everybody likes what's going on. And this can only happen when everybody, children, parents, family, is doing their part and contributing. All right, so here's the progression. You will have children right now who are not independent. Okay, I already know that. But there is a journey that you can take them down. They're going to start out with dependence. Right? I have a little girl. She's 11 months old today. She is dependent. Right? But we're going to move her towards guided practice. Right? I'm doing it with her. She's doing the thing. And eventually, it's going to lead towards independence. But you know what? We actually don't want to stop at independence. We want to transition them to leadership. Because leadership means that your children not only know what they need to do and can do it for themselves, but they can see and identify things that need to happen within their family, within the home, within their job, within whatever responsibilities God gives them. And they will be able to lead, all right, and stand out from amongst their peers because of all these stages that you brought them through. All right, age-appropriate independence expectations. Again, independence doesn't look the same for every child. Your elementary age student is going to have different expectations than your middle and high school age student, right? And I'm just going to leave these up here. I don't want to talk through every single point, but the point is simple. Independence looks different at 5 than it does at 15, right? So it's totally reasonable and appropriate for you to have different expectations for each of your children. And if they think that's unfair, then you can just remind them that their older brothers or sisters had the same issues when they were a lot younger, and they will grow towards that same level of independence. And again, you don't have to restrict your children. If you have a 5-year-old who's ready to act like a 10-year-old, then let them, by all means. Be a kid, play, have fun. But if they show strong independence, then build on that. There's nothing wrong with that. So moving right along, systems that build independence, clear instructions and expectations, right? If you don't know where you're going, you're sure to get there. Written or visual instructions, like I love having a whiteboard or a printed sheet that your children can walk out to in the morning when they start their morning routine, and just have a game plan for what they're expected to get through that day. Self-checking materials, like whether it's be answer keys or rubrics, something where they can do their work and then check their work or check their siblings' work. And then designated help times. Figure it out, do your best. I'm available at 11:30. Right? So there are times, like I have to tell my girls sometimes, Dad's got a meeting. And they know that during meeting time, they're just gonna have to play and figure it out. And if there's a problem that needs to be solved, we'll do it after the meeting, right? They have gotten used to that. That expectation has been set. And so we can kind of move into that. And then regular accountability. These are your check-ins, right? So Don't just leave your children to independence when they're doing well and expect that it will always be done well. Your children will slump off if you are not keeping their feet to the fire. So that accountability piece is really important. Like anything, like a good boss, there are check-ins. It's just a part of the process because we all have a propensity to just do a little bit less over time as we get comfortable. We don't want to take our foot off the brake in their independence. So just a little bit of follow through will go a long way. What's the expression? An ounce of prevention prevents a pound of pain. Something along those lines. Like it's going to save you a lot. So, and then strategy 5, the burnout prevention protocol, right? Sustainable practices that grow stronger over time. This is so important because I hope that everyone can see homeschooling is a journey. And where you start right now, even if it feels like you're just surviving, you will survive a little bit better tomorrow. And next year, you will have systems in place that will feel like they work. Your children will gain independence over time and competence. Ultimately, you will lead to a place where you feel like you're doing very little, but getting very much. There are compounding gains in homeschooling that you do not see in traditional education. And so part of trusting the process is setting rhythms and systems in place now that lead to the end goals, which is why I talk so much about mission, values, and goals. Know where you're going, because you will see progress and you will see that progress accelerate over time, and it will build your own confidence to know I'm not messing my kids up, which I think sometimes we just need to be reminded of. So recognizing burnout before it hits, there are warning signs, ladies and gentlemen. Like, look at the writing on the wall. Dreading homeschool time is a warning sign. Constant frustration with your children is a warning sign. Feeling overwhelmed with simple tasks is, again, another warning sign. Comparing yourself to other families, believe it or not, is not healthy, right? So if Instagram is hurting your homeschooling, then sometimes it's okay to just step away. Physical exhaustion beyond tiredness is another sign, and loss of joy in the learning process altogether is another sign. So burnout is a system problem. It's not a personal failure. I have worked with families that felt like failures at homeschooling that I told them, it's not you as a parent, it's your approach. So when you get your approach right, all of a sudden homeschooling becomes a lot smoother. And today is just all about finding different approaches to make the process smoother. So daily reflection rhythm. End each day, I love having a family meeting. If you guys can fit it in somewhere where you reflect on what's been learned, it will be so valuable for your children to learn that process in life. When they do something, whether they try and fail or try and succeed, if they will learn to reflect on it, there is more value in every single thing that you do with your children. And I want you to think about that piece of fruit that you're juicing, right? You want all of that juice to come out. And there is so much to learn after everything that your children do, including their failures, maybe especially their failures. So having a place where you can circle back to things that have happened is going to give your children a lot of value, because there's things, again, that they can learn in the process, not just in the specific tasks. Simple questions. What worked well? What needs improvement? What's tomorrow's focus? It just brings reflection and then clarity on where you're going. And the benefits of this, children feel heard and valued. Sometimes they need to say something, but if you never ask, they're not going to tell you. Right? Problems are addressed quickly. Everyone knows what to expect. And then the family unit is strengthened. Right? This is, every time you do this, you're building your family and you're making it stronger. Weekly CEO review for parents. So this is a part of prevention of burnout, right? You need to have some review questions that you ask yourself. Have a little Friday reflection for just you. Have a parent notebook for your homeschool. What's working well this week? Just process that question and have something to write down. Something went well, I promise you. Something was better than last week. So reflect on that. What challenges did we face? Get those things documented so you can start to identify them as they come in coming weeks. How is each child progressing? What schedule adjustments are needed? Your schedule the first time will not be perfect. It will need changes. So you have to be reflecting in order to identify the areas where you can make the right changes for more sustainability. And then what's our focus next week? Again, a couple of clarifying questions will do a lot to help your organization as your homeschool and you, the CEO, move forward successfully. And then self-care. Just have a scale and rate yourself. How's my energy? How's my stress? How's my joy? And what adjustments can I make? If you will just have a few things like that in place, it will do so much for you and your family. It will, trust me, it will be worth it. You will have insights that you didn't know you needed to ask yourself that will come from that process. Some markers of sustainability: that your system is working, your days feel manageable, Your children are increasingly independent. Your family relationships feel like they're getting stronger. Learning is happening even when you're not forcing it. And you have energy that allows you to do other things on your agenda, and problems are solved quickly without being ignored. Time to adjust when energy is consistently low, constant family conflict, children are becoming dependent more and more rather than less. And then you or anyone in your family is dreading homeschooling time. This is a signal that we need to change something. Remember again that sustainable systems, they do get easier over time. And every single thing that we preach today is followed with consistency. Consistency ultimately is going to be the thing that wins out in homeschooling. And when you find something that works, you just have to keep doing it, right? So that review, that CEO review, is going to allow you to take one thing this week maybe that you can improve. But once you nail it, just keep doing it. And consistency is going to guarantee success over time. All right, we're going to kind of blast through this. This is the last part that we're going to touch on, and then we're getting to questions. And we're still at 15 minutes. So this is perfect. So here's your 4-week implementation roadmap, potentially, because you can't do everything at once, right? So today, this week, just focus on a foundation. Establish a morning launch. Create a needs and wants list and begin reflection of your rhythm, right? Put those basic things, those basic structural things in place to get you moving forward. You don't have to have all of these systems mastered, okay? But maybe by week 2, we're going to start some of the teaching component. Implement multi-level teaching for at least one subject. History or science or Bible. Do something where it's the same content, but we're teaching everybody together, and see how it goes. Establish your first focus block, right? We're going to do a 20 to 25 minute period where we are all attending and present, and we're really, giving the direct instruction, the direct care that our children need. But when we get done with that, we're going to step away a little bit, and then practice help time boundaries. Allow your kids to have a question and wait on it for a little bit. Right? Let them stew on that question for a little bit and try to figure it out. And if they do, they're going to be so excited. Celebrate with them when they tell you. And if not, allow them to come to you during that help period. Week 3, we're starting to just push a little bit more towards independence. Add some independent learning blocks. During this time, here's the things that you need to knock out. Let me know if you have any questions during help time, but otherwise, you can do it. You have all the materials you need. Ask questions, answer questions before you start, and then really set them free to do it. Trust the process. Let them stumble a little bit, and then again, in your reviews at the end of the day, you can work on things to improve. And expand possibly multi-level homeschooling to another subject. If you feel like you got one down and it's going okay, try to add another one. If you're still struggling, push it off another week. That's totally okay. And then week 4, think about refining. Adjust based on what's working. Add a weekly CEO review and celebrate progress and plan ahead. Again, celebrating progress is so important for you and for your kids, to just acknowledge when good things are happening and that you guys are making progress, and that your child did something on their own, or independence was modeled and you celebrated it, or you all feel better about the day, or you got done early, or they knocked out their needs list and got to do some of the things that they want to do. These are all things worth celebrating. And part of the refining is just noticing that, right? Noticing it and then attending to it and doubling down on what's working. So I didn't get through all 23 pages, but we got through the meat. So we're going to stop the presenting, and we're going to get to the question component. So I know there was at least one about math, and we can get to that. But why don't we do that first? And then if you ladies have any questions, you can either unmute yourself or you can drop it in the chat, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But how can you do math for all levels? Again, so this is one of those subjects that more than probably any other requires that individual attention, right? And so when you get to those focus block periods, the most important thing that you can do is focus on the concept or the idea that's being taught. So if you have, we're going to continue to use the example of 3 different children. If you have 3 different children, then allowing each of them, like, maybe your oldest, you get them started, you tell them to read the instructions on their own. And then you focus on the youngest 2. And you go through the specific skill that you're learning that day. You do a couple practice problems and you let them try it. And then you say, I'd like you to try it on your own while I have a talk with, let's say, your brother, right? Get them going, circle back and make sure that your eldest child actually understood what they read. Did they get the concept? Did they try a couple practice problems? If they miss it, then go back with them, see where the problem occurred, and again, reaffirm the skill, make sure that it's clear, and then get them back on their practice problems. Now we go back to our younger children. How is it going? You know, if they just are sitting there staring at the paper, if they're having a meltdown, these things happen. But maybe right now the thing that we focus on for them is the emotional well-being. But ideally, we want to get each child moving forward at least one step on their own at that level. What is required of you during that focus block is to just get them to the point where they feel like they understand the concept and they can start to do just that concept on their own. And if that's all that you get done during the 25 minutes, now when it comes time for independent learning, maybe we've got 20 problems of the same exact type of problem that we want them to complete independently, mistakes and all. And then if it's independent learning time, if you really set yourself up for success, you give them the answer key, which they're allowed to get only after they complete all the problems. And then they self-check with a pen, right? So now all of these processes are in place. And the only thing that you actually had to do was make sure that each child got the concept and practice it a couple times, right? You don't have to go through an entire lesson and all the work that's, you know, laid out for each child. You just need them to have an aha moment with specifically that one concept, and then you go from there. I saw a thumbs up list. Hopefully that's helpful. What else? Megan, I saw your camera come on. It's great to see you. I don't know if you have a question, but anyone, feel free to hop on.
I don't have a question about the content. I thought it all made a lot of sense. Excited to implement a few things that you talked about. I was a couple of minutes late, though. I was wondering if the notes might be available for us later, or
So I am recording this conversation, and I will do my best to do a quick edit. It won't be too refined, but maybe to chop off some of the pieces that aren't super necessary, and get it out to you. Ultimately, I think that this is a concept that there's a lot of content here, right? Like I said, I had 23 pages and we didn't get through all, we got through all the ideas. There's a lot, right? There's just a lot that we could say, that we had the 5 key strategies. And so, yeah, if you could circle back to it, if you are not already, because I know we have 2 different groups here tonight. We have the Southern Nevada Homeschooling Association, and then we also have members of my free community, which is called Start Homeschooling. So if you're not there, then things will be posted there. If you're a member of Southern Nevada Homeschool Association, I'll try to pack some resources out to get to Kathy to share. But ultimately, we just want to make sure that you are all feeling confident and successful in what is a process. I hope that you all see that. This is it's a journey. Just like the independence journey starts with dependence. And so it will take time. But if you are consistent and you set things up now, you will see the needle move forward. And for a week or a month or 6 months, it might be overwhelming, but it will quickly start to reveal itself as something that I can do this. And those little wins will give you enough motivation to get through the next week or the next month. Anyone else? Sorry, I called you out, Megan. I apologize because
I figured it's nicer to be able to see who you're talking to. So I was like, okay, I can pop on for a minute now. Let me.
I very much appreciate it. I always talk as if I'm looking all of you right in the eyes. But sometimes it's easier to actually have eyes to look at. Anyone else? If not, I'm going to give it another minute. And then if there are no other questions, I actually have an offer for all of you that I'd like to share. Because you're here, you're already doing things. We have a couple members of the Homeschool Mastery Group that are already here with us today. This is an example of the kind of resources that we try to make available. But for members of Southern Nevada Homeschool Association, each of you has access to the Homeschool Mastery Group at 50% off. And so for everyone that is here tonight, that offer is on the table. And it's basically where we do this on the regular, right? So every week we get together, and whether it's just having that kind of emotional support that sometimes we need to kind of hear our problems out loud and know that they're normal, or you actually are going through a specific stage where you really need a lot of help. I'm kind of just here in the corner of every family in our community. I think we're at 24 families right now. And it's, yeah, I love what I do. I love being able to help parents. I love homeschooling. And specifically, I have always been of the conviction that parents are naturally called and equipped to be the primary educators of their children. And so I understand that not everyone feels like it. So anything that I can do to lower the threshold and the pain points and help you feel more successful, for me, is my mission, right? So that's my mission of my organization. That's the mission of Homeschool Mastery Group, is to equip and empower parents to feel confident to lead the homeschool programs that they need and want, rather than the ones that someone else tells them they should have. So that's ongoing, and I would love to share that with anyone who's not a part of it. But if not, stay on these calls whenever we have them. I think hopefully they'll keep being high value. And Kathy, anything that you want to say to any of your members before we cut and run?
Yeah, well, I had a few things I wanted to say. First of all, I'm in both groups, right? I'm in Southern Nevada Homeschool Association. I'm also part of your Homeschool Mastery Group. I love both. I think both are really great. And again, when I joined the Homeschool Mastery Group, I felt like after 6 years of homeschooling, I finally kind of got into a rhythm. And I didn't think that I needed the assistance, but there's a lot of really great stuff that I've learned just being part of the group. And to the presentation, I have to say, these things that you provided us, these guidelines, the advice, it's solid, because it took me that long to figure out that rhythm of like, not every child has to have a specific curriculum for every subject. And I feel like social media kind of gives you like a twisted view of what homeschooling should look like, where I feel like moms feel more accomplished if we have more things. Like if every child has very unique curriculum for every subject and you're sitting with them for an hour per subject to do the work. And so you get a lot of like ideas out there, and then you feel less than if you're not providing all of these things, all of these resources. And again, I've just come to realization after 6 years that it doesn't have to be that way, that we're just doing too much and it's not beneficial to us or to the child. And we also don't want to bring school to the house, right? So like 8 hours of school at home is not necessary. So as you were talking, I was like, yes, like I feel like I'm finally doing it right, because it's working for us. I could tell you that the things that you talked about in the presentation, we are now doing. We started about maybe a year ago or so when I started getting really busy with the association. I was like, okay, something's got to give. I got to cut back. I got to be more efficient. And it's working for us so well. And I do work from home. So I work on the association. And also, I help my husband with a construction company we own. And so I work from home. So these little bits of information you gave do work. I've been doing them for about a year. We do certain subjects on the go. The kids do a lot of independent learning. We try to do subjects as a family. I mean, and I just took inventory right now as you were giving your presentation, and I wrote out like all the subjects and what I'm doing for them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm covering everything. So yes, we're doing it, and it doesn't seem overwhelming. So I just gotta say, great presentation as usual. All of these things I could say I've implemented, just figuring them out on my own over 6 years of homeschooling, and they do work, and I do recommend them. And that's actually what I tell parents now. I'm like, you don't have to make it complicated, and you don't have to like have a subject for everything, and you don't have to overdo it and burn yourself out and bring your children out. A lot of people were interested in this topic. I know why, because we've all spent so much time researching curriculum, buying it, and then not being able to implement it all. And so people wanted to find a way to make it more sustainable, to do all the things without burning out. So great presentation. Highly recommend the Homeschool Mastery Group. Obviously, highly recommend Southern Nevada Homeschool Association. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I think it's solid advice here.
Awesome. Well, we love the feedback. Liz, I saw you raise your hand. Do you have a question for us?
Yes, where do I sign up?
That's a great question, Liz. I'm going to send a link right here in the chat. And are you a part of Southern Nevada Homeschool Association, or are you a part of the Start Homeschooling community?
The community.
Okay, well, you can message me if for some reason anything goes sideways, but I have actually, during the course of this call, I drop these every once in a while. It's kind of like a little like light at the end of the rainbow. I've adjusted the price to 50% off for life. So if you click on that link, I'll leave that up for a little bit.
Wait,
And
where is the link?
if you look in the little chat button here, I just posted it. So if you can't get it,
Oh, I see it now. Okay.
okay, perfect. Yeah. So click on that link,
Yeah.
and that will take you there. And then hang out with us for a minute and leave it open.
Got it.
And I'll leave that up until I see your registration come through.
Okay.
But yeah, let's do it. And one of the things that I'm offering, I didn't even say this, I ought to, is when you join, we could do a 30-minute kind of private session to just figure out where you are and do a little bit of a deep dive. I find a little bit of help in the beginning for clarity can sometimes go a long way. And so if you're up for a personalized call, we can do that as well.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Fantastic. Ladies, anyone else have any questions or anything to say before we hop off? No. All right. Well, to each of you, I wish you the best. And until next time, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.